All right. It is Monday. Patrick Reusse joins Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Thank you guys for listening again. Another week. Should be fun times this week. Lots of good stuff coming up this week. A lot of big decisions, and I'm going to get to that with Patrick. Some of these looming matters that they're going to impact Minnesota teams greatly. But first, Patrick, I think we should talk about the 3M Open and a pretty dramatic, interesting finish on Sunday. How much of that did you attend, write about, see, things of that nature?
I was out there Friday and Saturday, and then yesterday I went out to a town ball game. I took my wife out to a town ball game. She'd been wanting to go to one, and but I got back in time to see the last, pretty much the back nine. So I watched a lot of it, and obviously 18 wasn't the monster yesterday that it was the day before, because the wind was blowing from the other direction. When the wind blows from the north, you of course remember that hole when the seniors played it, and the tee box was down on the same level, and the pond was not nearly as long. And it was basically, if they didn't make a three, if they didn't make a birdie on that hole, they felt bad. But Saturday was one of the great train wrecks of all time, because they had like 220, 30-yard carries into the wind. And if you go all the way around, that's a pain in the rear end too. And what was it? They ended up with 30 balls in the water. And they ended up for the week more balls in the water on that hole than any other hole in golf. Even the famous one down there on Jack's golf course where they ended up having the carnage every year at the Honda, and it was fun. And Mike, I wrote this for Saturday, but when we go back to the seniors, and they had that course set up as easy as they could.
Right.
And there was really no punishment for there was nothing that could cause them to make a double bogey. They had to like feint on the tee box or something and hit it 5 yards. There was no double bogeys out there. There certainly was no triple bogeys. The winner was 20 under or more for 3 rounds. And it was just the idea that they were going to turn this into a golf course that would be a reasonable test. I'm not saying it's a grind now, but I thought the winner would be 28 under every year, and they'd be shooting 62s left and right. But they went out, and the first year they made a few adjustments. Now they've made a lot more adjustments. And if they can get it hard and fast, like it played most of the week, if they can keep the rain away and get the greens hard and fast, it's turned into a pretty good test of golf for them. Now, one thing that obviously would have hurt their crowds is how hot it was. And there's not a lot of trees to hide under out there. If you're going to go watch golf, you're gonna be in the sun, and that hurt him. And another thing hurt him is Ricky had a huge gallery on Friday when I was out. I went out to follow Ricky. I was going to write an ode to Ricky, and then of course shot a 73. So you can't trust these guys. But there are a lot of people following him, I think they had fair crowds, but I think the heat kept a lot of people away. But it was a good tournament. They, the winners 15 under, and
I think 15. Yeah, Cameron Champ.
Yeah, a reasonable total. Boy, he played that 18 like a moron. He hit it. Well, he hit the driver over there behind the tree, and was in trouble. He could still win it by making bogey, but he hit the magnificent shot in there after hitting that terrible tee ball, and which made it kind of fun. He's a good winner, and so that it turned out to be a good tournament. I'm sure Hollis was satisfied with the way the golf. To me, the big test for this golf tournament was how the course held up, and the course had its best 4 days yet of the tournament. The previous winners were 21 under and 19 under, so they've always said up there if they got some wind that it was a better golf course. And of course, it's a time of year where we usually don't get a lot of wind, but they got wind Saturday, so it was a good tournament.
Classic runner-up finish for Reusse too. It's unbelievable how he can't I think I think in Jerry Zagoda's game story, he's been a runner-up, second or third, I think, runner-up in like 4 of his last 7 PGA Tour starts. He's finished like runner-up like 15 times on the tour, something like that. It's amazing that he's really good player. But if you're counting on something, it's not him to finish the job on a Sunday.
Yeah, although this time he did it by coming from behind. He wasn't ahead.
Yes.
This time he was kind of, he wasn't in the pack, but he was like 8th or 9th or 10th or something. And this time, but he wanted to be on his plane and leaving, but he ended up they started beating it around, and all of a sudden he had a chance to win, so he had to hang around, But I would say one of the great efforts of the weekend, though, was by Dustin Johnson, because Dustin was, once he knew he wasn't going to win, he wanted to get home to see Pauline and the kids, and he's still got a chance to make the cut if he makes birdie on 18, which is very doable for him on Friday. So he just hits her in the water and then tells us how disappointed he is. He's been here twice. Hollis begged him to show up twice. And last year he shot 80 or 78 and pulled out with a bad back. And this time he was determined not to make the cut, in my opinion. That's just, I don't think he wanted to stick around for 2 days to finish 38th. That didn't appeal to him. You see a few private jets out there at the Anoka Airport during this tournament. I always think those are the players that want to be gone as quick as they can once they figure out they're not going to win the tournament.
Not too disappointed to miss the cut, huh? Yeah, I suppose there's probably. Never even thought about that, how guys that might be on the borderline of missing the cut, but they're 10 shots back already. They're like,
I got a lot of tournaments ahead of me here. I mean, they got to go to Memphis to play in that the World Golf event, because it's FedEx is the sponsor, and basically said, give us this tournament, else we're going to put our money elsewhere, even though the PGA Tour is different than the World Golf thing. Yeah, but they wanted a bigger event, so you got to go there and sweat your rear ends off, and then there's the Olympic thing, and there's then we got the start of the FedEx playoffs. So it's not exactly the greatest week to attract golfers to Minnesota. That's for sure.
Another thing this weekend, Patrick, and I want to get through. We're going to run through like 5 or 6 different subjects now, where I'm going to ask you your basically your gut instinct on what is going to happen. We're going to start with Jose Berrios. Made what could be his last start in Minnesota for the Twins Saturday. It was another good one. He was out-dueled. Twins almost got no hit in that game. Thanks to Brent Rooker, they didn't, but it was 2 outs away. That's not great. That said, Berrios pitches pretty well. He's, they ask him after the game, basically like, what do you think about your future? What do you think, Patrick, maybe this is a 2-part question, is Jose Berrios here beyond the trade deadline, which is only a few days away? Let's start there.
I'd say that one's 50-50. That's a very obscure response, but they're going to get, if they don't get plenty for him, I don't think there's a desperation to trade him, because they know they can trade him this winter too. But I would guess that there's supposedly the Mets badly want him. The Mets want to win the East. They want to get in the playoffs. The Mets I don't know what kind of shape their farm system is, but they're not going to trade him. They're not going to trade him for the Johan Santana package of a bunch of suspects. They're gonna want your let's say you're a mid-level minor league system. I'm not sure what the prospects level is with the Mets, but you're going to have to give them your 2 and your 4 and then one other player, right? I mean, you're going to have to give them 2 of your top 5 prospects and really guys that not suspects. They're going to have to give them guys that are going to make it for Berrios, in my opinion. They're going to somebody's going to have to blow their doors off, I think, because whoever trades for him does have another year, of him too. So it's not, that's what makes trading him now better, because teams are, you got the trouble is there's only a few teams desperate to win, I think. So, but if the Mets really want him, they can have him. I think they know they're not going to sign him. I mean, that story that we had last week pretty much told that story, right? That Phil wrote that, he's not right. He's not signing here for any kind of bargain rate. They're going to have to pay him the 150, and I don't think they want to do that. So, yeah, I'd say there's maybe even more 60-40 that
he's traded by the deadline.
Traded, yeah.
How about Byron Buxton? Is he traded this offseason? Is that that's got to be more than 50-50 at this point, doesn't it? Or am I reading that one wrong?
But I don't think now. I don't.
No, not now. Not the deadline. Offseason.
I mean, I know they bringing up the fact that maybe trading him on deadline. I've seen that too, and I don't think there's any chance that's going to happen because there's no value right. I mean, what's the value right now? He's got to get on the field and play for a couple of months. At the same time, you just wonder if he's even worried about coming back now because he knows he's not going to sign here. I mean, the Phil story today in the Star Tribune pretty much told us that he's got a source telling him that they can't sign him and they're not going to sign him. So, yeah, he's gone too. But this winter, I would think certainly not now. And if he doesn't play more than 30 games the rest of the season or something, then you might not even be able to trade him this winter. You might have to wait until he reestablishes his value next year, right? April and May. You might have to trade him next year at the deadline, but you don't like to do that with position players because position players rarely bring the value that you're expecting before the trading deadline. Usually that's a pitchers, relief pitchers, a couple of starter pitchers move at the deadline. Everybody's looking for pitching, and there's not the big blockbuster position player trades usually at the trading deadline. So I would guess I don't think he'll get traded now, but he's going to get traded. He's not going to sign here either, and they're not going to play it out like Houston's playing it out with Correa. Because Houston got a chance to go to the World Series, so they're just going to play it out with him and let him go. But that's not going to happen with Buxton. I don't know what these guys are up to. I really don't. You got a guy who's a Twins guy keeps telling me they've wanted to do this rebuild quite some while, but I don't buy that because everybody thought they were going to be good this year. Hell, they got people saying they were going to go to the World Series. So I mean, I can't buy that this is a pre-planned plot to be rotten,
No, I mean, they had a lot of 1-year guys. So, they were set up at least for either scenario, set up to flip some of these guys at the deadline if need be. But it's strange to me. Like, it's not like these are the only 2 players they've ever developed. Obviously, Jorge Polanco is a pretty good player. Until this year, you saw a trajectory for Kepler. You're looking at like Kirilloff, Larnach on the way. They've got some homegrown players, but Berrios and Buxton have got to be their 2 highest, probably their highest end, guys they've developed in the last 5-6 years, right? In terms of their ceiling, in terms of how good they could be, pitcher and hitter. How do we get to this point now where they could, is this just the economics of baseball? Is this bad negotiating along the way where now we're at this point where you're going to have to potentially trade one or both of these guys? How do you think, is there any blame to distribute, I guess, to the front office for how we got to this point?
I don't think so on the Buxton situation because what's the stat? He's played 38% of the games since the start of 2018. But in Berrios, yes, they when they were out there trying to sign, when they got Kepler signed and they got Polanco signed for team-friendly deals, they should have went for this guy right then. He'd already had 3 years on his track record of not missing any starts, and they tried to lowball him then, got him in a bad mood. They should have, and I know a lot of people are reluctant to give the same kind of deals to pitchers, but they should have been rewarding him back in 2018, and they didn't, and they got him in a bad mood. And now they're left basically. They have one starting pitcher because Maeda's okay, but he's older and he's not an ace. He was an ace last year. He's not anymore. He's their only starting pitcher. It's a disaster to lose him, in my opinion. I mean, Buxton's a great player, but Buxton's explainable what has happened with him and the team, but Berrios is not, and I blame them for screwing that up from the get-go, because he's the hardest working kid of all time. He's he's a horse. He might not be he's not an ace. Well, it's those people who say he's not an ace will only admit that there's about 6 of them in baseball. I mean, he's certainly one of the top 20 starting pitchers in the major leagues, and they didn't take care of him, and now he's mad, and now he's not going to give him any kind of a bargain, and he's not going to be here. And the more I say this, the more I'm talking myself into the fact they'll probably trade him this week. So, but I think yes, they're fully to blame for screwing up the Berrios situation.
They're only 42 and 58, Patrick. They could still turn it around.
Yeah,
62 games left.
100. I thought I looked it up yesterday, and I must have had bad math or something. I thought they'd already played 110 games. Somebody told me, no, it's only 100. It really depressed me.
It seems like 110. It seems like 210.
It does. So Taylor Rodgers gone too, I think.
Yeah. And once those guys are, I mean, if they say Berrios, even just Rodgers and a couple other guys, even if you take, Andrelton Simmons off the roster, and they say he gets traded, and Rodgers gets traded. Like, you take a bad team, and that's a lot of what happened to. That's what happens to these teams at the deadline. They they're bad, but you looked at like some of those really bad Twins teams, and they had their record through July was bad, but it was not. It was not what it was at the end of the season. August and September, once you unload, get to be lopsided months.
The comparable is 2011. Absolutely, comparable is you went in with high expectations and you were terrible. That team finished 19 and 50.
Yes,
that team. They were 19 and 50. They were only 500 at one time. 44.
There was 49. A time where we were talking about should they buy or sell.
Yeah, Phil Mackey was putting out "It's Happening" T-shirts. This team's going to lose 100. There's no doubt about it. Once the trades are done, they're losing 100. They might top the 100. What's the record? 103, right? From just a couple years ago.
That'd be tough. They'd have to go 17 and 17 and 45. 17 and 45 would get them to 59 and 103.
They're going to lose 100. Well, one thing they got to worry about now is the Tigers are better. The Tigers are way better than them. Now they're almost done getting beat by the Tigers, but the Tigers are better than them. And Kansas City, they're last now. They're a solid last in the Central that we laughed at. But Rodgers is a guy that you trade because you can get a lot for him. I think you trade Berrios and Rodgers, you should get 5 very good prospects out of those 2 deals.
Yeah.
Or at least 4 very good prospects, and then 2 other bodies, that got a chance. But you had, Rodgers, a left-handed reliever as good as him, there's going to be a big market for him.
Do you like how the 2 guys, who I like, by the way, the 2 guys they got in the Cruz trade? I thought they did pretty well in the Cruz trade, but they immediately went from number 10 and number 17 in the Rays prospect list, according to MLB.com, jumped right into number 6 and number 13 for the Twins. So that tells you the relative strength of the two farm systems there, at least according to that ranking.
Yeah. Well, plus I looked up the guys, and the kid that's pitching for the Olympic team, Joe. What is it? Ryan? Is it Ryan?
Joe Ryan. Yeah.
He's he was having a great year at Durham, but you look at his track record before that, and he didn't pitch in 2020.
Right.
So and this Stratman, he doesn't dazzle me when I look at his numbers. So, but there must be something people like about him. Neither were, exceptionally high draft choices either. So, yeah, I guess they're bodies, but Ryan, certainly his strikeout numbers are fantastic. We'll see how he does in the Olympics. If he gets knocked around by Brazil or something, I won't be that excited. But I don't even know who's in the tournament. But yeah, I mean they did it. But I'm glad Nelson got out of here, and he's already hit 2 home runs and having the time of his life. I'm sure, even playing in that ballpark. So.
Couple more things, Patrick. Now that we're dealing with the big questions of the week, training camps open. Patrick, is Aaron Rodgers going to show up, and what's going to happen there? I don't think we've talked about that much because we've spent so much time on stuff that happens over the weekend on these shows. What about what's up with the situation? What do you think is going to happen here?
Can't believe he's going to show up. They say he's what is the latest? Have we had any good leaks from him? I don't know. When I hear his name on one of those TV shows, I got to turn it off. I can't stand it because they say the same thing every day for weeks and weeks and weeks. But I don't think he's showing up. No, I don't. I don't think he's showing up. But if he does, I think he's going to show up and have himself a sore shoulder or something and have to sit on the sidelines or do something, They say he's somebody told me that if he gets a grudge, it only lasts for life. Whatever. I mean, look at his family. He doesn't talk to them. And, his brother followed him into the, quarterback at Vanderbilt, and I'm sure Aaron was his idol, and I don't think they talk to each other. So I don't know. He's the kind of guy when his girlfriend introduces him to another girl, she becomes his girlfriend. Supposedly Danica introduced him to this young actress that he's now engaged to. Yes, so
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, that was the rumor. So I believe
Patrick's been reading more Us Weekly than I have. That's good, Patrick. I appreciate that.
I don't know where it came from, but the poor guys that covered the Packers, who, by the way, get covered as well as any team there is with all the writers they have. They've had to follow his love life as well as his quarterback life over there. So I think that's the deal. But yeah, I don't think he shows up. I don't.
It's amazing.
Think he shows up.
No, I don't think he does either. It's amazing how. It's just if you feel like the Packers have the script has been written before. This whole thing played out with Favre when they drafted Rodgers, but Favre kept. All Favre wanted to do was stay. He wanted to keep coming back. He'd retire. He'd come back. He'd hint at retiring. He'd come back. They burned 3 years of Aaron Rodgers' early career because Favre wouldn't leave. And now Rodgers is like, nah, I'm gone. It's just totally shows the huge, we tend to think of Favre and Rodgers as this kind of succession, but as people, they could not possibly be more different.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Yeah. Brett needed the love. I don't think this guy needs the love. I don't think he cares if Brett needs the love of the fans and all that stuff. I don't think Rodgers cares about any of that stuff. It's Tom Brady envy. You got Tom Brady envy everywhere. That Brady, they come on down here, and then after 4 games, things aren't going well. Tom, what do you want to do with the offense? Okay, Tom, who do you want us to get here? Antonio Brown, okay, he's got nothing left, but if you want him, we'll bring him in here and let him catch 8 passes. Gronk, you want Gronk? We'll get Gronk. They let Rodgers be the offensive coordinator. I mean, Brady be the offensive coordinator and the player personnel director. And I think Rodgers wants some of that. And the Packers, are too pompous for that. They won't give it to him, and I think that's why he's out of there. And they're gonna threaten him and do everything and threaten to go after his money and make themselves get themselves into an untenable situation, and then have to trade him anyway. Their trouble is, though, it's kind of like if somebody's going to trade for him now, like Denver or something, they don't want to wait a week. They want him there now, right? I mean, you got to make that decision this week, right? If you're going to get rid of him, otherwise you just are, okay, you get some of your money back. So what? You don't, you're still going to end up with Jordan Love as your quarterback, and you're not going to have any reinforcements to replace, to give him a better chance by making a trade. You're not going to get what you could have gotten for Rodgers to help Jordan Love out. So it's I don't know. They're just being, I think this Murphy, the team president, is an egomaniac myself.
It could be. And it's just kind of gets into my last thing here. And it's just an amazing story because I'm sure the Vikings are just sitting over here. Vikings open camp, same time. Almost all these teams open the same time. They're opening, a day here, and they are on the field, I think, for the first time on Wednesday. They got to be sitting here like, this is basically what happens with Aaron Rodgers could determine jobs with the Vikings, because these guys, they go from, depending on who's quarterbacking the Packers, they go from, maybe, taking aim at a wild card, in this, 3 wild card, 17 game season to, we could probably win the division if Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in the division all of a sudden.
I think the Packers. I think the Packers are overrated anyway. I think Rodgers had such fantastic years. The reason they almost went to the Super Bowl. I look at that team. You got Devontae Clay. You got Devontae, one great receiver. You're always having offensive line problems because of injuries over there. Their defense is okay. The Vikings now have a better defense than they do, in my opinion, because of the reinforcements they brought on. If Aaron Rodgers plays, I still think the Vikings win the division. I think the Packers.
Wow,
Packers,
really?
And I'm not an anti-Packer guy. I'm not.
No, I know.
This is an Eastern guy. I just don't think the Packers are. I think they popped up. They had a hell of a year because Rodgers played better than he'd ever played, and then they end up, deciding to kick a field goal and instead of trying to win, go to the Super Bowl, and they're not great. The Vikings will. The Vikings will. I like everything the Vikings did. Now you always end up with it's football. Who gets hurt and who doesn't is about half of it all the time. But personnel, everybody plays, including Aaron Rodgers. I like the Vikings better than the Packers. And boy, that's hard for me to say because see the massive maniacal profiteer Ziggy now charging people to go watch practice, for God's sakes. It's these guys are the $200 million a year isn't enough profit for these guys. They now have to gouge the fans when they go out to watch practice. But that said, I like what they've done in the offseason. And, I don't think they're terribly well coached. I think Zimmer's a mediocre coach, and I don't have any idea how the kid's going to be as an offensive coordinator. But, I think Green Bay is probably better coached than they are.
And whether they're going to have their security blanket, Rick Dennison.
Yes. Well, I think that we can maybe we can end that. I don't have any crusty old offensive line coach. I'm not surprised that he's an anti-vaxxer. It is amazing what the NFL is trying to do here. But is this the worst union in sports, by the way?
Yes. It is.
You're gonna give them permission to fine guys for not getting vaccinated and suspend teams and do everything that they got. Their union's unbelievable. They're just a bunch of, But the NFL they got a 10-year contract now to push the players around. So this is the start of it. And obviously I think anyone who doesn't get a vaccine is an idiot, but I do think they have the right not to do it. So,
Patrick, saying the Vikings are going to win the division with or without Aaron Rodgers on the Packers was that was the biggest opinion you had. I was not expecting that. We saved that for the end. We're all done here. Thank you so much for joining Daily Delivery today. Hope everybody enjoyed the show today. We'll do this again next Monday. All right.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Goodbye. See you.